Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the first time in my life at my club where I can really practice my volume because the time we meet is a weird one for me. But hey, that's enough about me. Welcome to Online Presenters Work. Welcome to a Saturday workshop. Exceptional. What's in store for you? You're going to find out soon. But first of all, a few protocols. Please enjoy yourself. That's number one. Enjoy yourself. If you want to take notes, take notes. If you're having a drink, please put it aside, not on your laptop because it may spill on your laptop. There's a mute button at the bottom of your screen on the bottom left. Please keep it muted. There will be moments where we may invite you to ask a question or share your feedback. Then we will help you unmute yourself. There's also the video button. Please keep it on because we want to capture your smiling faces. And please look at the chat. We'll be engaging you in the chat, especially at specific moments where we're going to ask for volunteers. Having said that, life is important, life matters. So if there's something happening at your place and you need to leave the room where you are and be safe, please do that, we'll understand. If you have one of these devices, keep them on mute because we want you to enjoy the show. But if there's something important, a call that you need to take, we'd love that you just turn your screen off and take your call and then come back and join the fun. But one thing I forgot, Online Presenters. For those who don't know, Online Presenters is an advanced online Toastmasters club. If I'm not mistaken, currently the biggest Toastmasters club in the online world, and we specialize in skills for better webinars and presentations. And when do we meet? We meet on Monday at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. So if you want to join us, watch out for the link in the chat. Can be crazy, but because of the time zone where you are, but hey, it's worth attending. On this note, I'm going to shut up and hand over to someone who's crazier than me, who's an absolute magnificent person, lovely human being, and I'm so happy I'm not in the same space with him at the moment, otherwise I would be hugging him. He is my president, Toastmaster Extraordinaire and DTM, President Lik Nakani. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Christian. Great introduction. I want to welcome you all as our members and guests to today's workshop. As Christian said, we meet every Monday without fail. We have 52 meetings a year. And yes, for me, I'm in Manchester in England. Yes, it's the middle of the night. And we have 5 or 6 members in UK and Ireland, and also in Europe as well. And we have people, members all over the world. One of the things that is special about this club is we have special meetings at the weekends as well with speechathons, but also workshops like this. And it gives me great pleasure to actually be here today to welcome you. So thank you for making the time. And I hope that you're going to enjoy it as much as I think I'm going to enjoy it. Let me tell you one quick thing about Fursey. Fercy blew us away at the VTM Con in December. For me, my favorite speaker. Now, he made me laugh. He made me cry. I mean, he made us laugh. He made us cry and spill our drinks on our keyboard. And that was when he was actually warming up in the breakout room, by the way. And Christian will attest to that. He had us in stitches, but also we learned from him. He gave us something that was different. He connected with us. And that's what I'm looking for today. And I'm so excited. I want to say, just enjoy it, learn, feel free to ask questions, share your story. Remember, if you've got a 1-2 minute story, then when it's time for volunteer time, just go for it. What have you got to lose? I want you to take part, have fun, and also just enjoy today. It gives me great pleasure now. I'm going to welcome our moderator for the day. Please give a really warm welcome for our moderator, Elaine Nieberding.
Thank you, everyone, joining us from all around the world. And of course, replay viewers who will be watching this. What an exciting day to be joining again with Fursey Gotuaco. He currently hails from Texas. And if you've been watching the news at all lately, all around the world, Texas in the United States over the last couple of weeks has had some major power and infrastructure interruptions. I bet he has some stories to tell about that. Nonetheless, he's with us today after a wonderful time with us at VTMCon in December of 2020. Fercy has been a Toastmaster for just a few years, but his zest for life, his vitality moved him forward to be able to participate as a semifinalist in the International World Championship of Public Speaking. He has been a theater teacher and an educational administrator for over 2 decades, 25 years, I think. He's presented all over the world to different audiences of different ages, groups. He has lots of special things that he's passionate about, but it all comes back to the same thing of inspiring each one of us to bring our best forward in value and in service to others all the time. I am really thrilled to be participating in this workshop and inviting you to engage fully authenticity in storytelling. Think about that word, authenticity. Some people might even say, well, gee, that word is kind of overused when we talk about engaging with others. But I still believe it's a stellar word to be using. Think about the first 2 letters in the word authentic, AU. They're actually the same letters of the chemical symbol for gold. Wouldn't we all like the best, most deepest and valuable thing that we want to share in any given moment to come forward? Let our gold shine through. Let us create value by our engagement with others. And think about it. When you're telling a story, it's not just in Toastmasters and in a prepared speech. You can share stories all the time. In your presentations, in the networking you do, in your client and customer care. And if we can distill those stories and bring our vitality alive to inspire, engage, influence, persuade, that's what we're here for. So a little bit of the logistics before I bring our wonderful Fursey on. The first half an hour will be Fursey leading us, instructing us, engaging us. Then about a half an hour in, he'll be inviting some volunteers to work one-on-one with him from a story. And each one of us will get to think about how we would do the same kind of tweaking and what we could bring forward. The last half an hour will be Q&A. And also at that time, you'll find in the chat a link to give us feedback about this event. And now it is my great pleasure to welcome, open your mics, give a woohoo, a cheer for Fursey Gotuaco.
I didn't know how to say I love you. I think most people learn things from their parents. And part of my problem is that I come from that stereotypical Asian family that doesn't really show a lot of warmth. So my parents never said, I love you. I didn't know how to say it to anybody else. Now, that doesn't mean that my parents don't love me. They love me. I know they do. And I know this because of Oreo cookies. You see, I come from a pretty poor family. 7 kids, both working parents. And well, when you got that many kids, you don't really have a whole lot of money to spend on things like cookies or cake or anything else like that. And if we did have cookies and we had I don't know about you or where you're from, but in some of our stores, we have the generic brand. And so in the 70s, you had a yellow label and it just said cookies. It wasn't a particular brand. Well, one time my mother on her way to go shopping asked me, hey, what kind of cookies do you like? And I'm like, I don't know. You know, I was 10 years old, right? So I don't know. Stop bothering me with these questions. She goes, just what kind of cookies do you like? I said, and I just said the first thing that came to mind. Oreos. Yeah, advertising doesn't work on me. Oreos. Well, later that night, she came home with Oreo cookies. And that's how I knew that she was thinking of me. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. 10, 11, 12, 13. 13, 13, 13, 13, 13, 13. 14. 15. 16. 17. 18. 19. 20. 20. Ladies and gentlemen, the ability to tell a story is the ability to connect. The ability to connect to who you are and the ability to connect to the others around you. It's not just connecting through words, but connecting through emotions, through spirit. You are using the sounds of our voice, not just the words, because words might be different in other languages, and they often are, but through the sounds that come from our gut, sounds that come from in here, that visceral sound, that sound that is primal, the sound that short circuits from the brain. It comes from our heart and doesn't go up into our brain where we edit and think and shape and shift and tweak. No, it comes out and it's sound. It's an utterance. It's an inability to speak that gets caught right there. And that's when we know it's real. Because sometimes when the sound comes from here, it's very thoughtful, it's very provoking, it's very thinking, it's very precise. And we wonder, well, just how much have you thought about that? How much are you trying to manipulate me with your words? And I'm not sure I'm going to believe you. But when the sound comes out from the heart and it gets caught, where we see you start to think of the word. We have to think of the word because we haven't had this thought before. And if I haven't had this thought before, then it's coming from the heart. It might even be something that I've never said before. This feeling, this thought has never seen the light of day before. Maybe it just came to us. Maybe it just now came to us. I just thought of this idea. Why don't we do this idea together? Does that make sense? It just came to us. And when we are in the presence of someone who is sharing their thoughts and their ideas to us in such a seemingly spontaneous way, it gives us either the illusion or the perception, the reality that it is authentic. It's for real. It's happening right now. They haven't rehearsed it 50,000 million 100 times. It just happened. How we do this is a combination of many different things. Our words, our visual, our visual, our visual, our visual, our sounds, our sounds, our sounds. And so I'd like to look at all of those things today with you. Oh, and of course, our sounds. Don't underestimate the fact that there's music playing. Don't underestimate the fact that all us heroes, we've got hero music. You got to figure out what that music is to help your audience get to where you want them to get to. All right. Let's think about a couple of things that are very obvious to us. Let's think about our gestures. Now, when I say gestures, I'm also thinking about our facial gestures. So, just so I'm not the only idiot in the room, could we all do some warm-ups with me? All right. We're going to just start right here. We're going to start right here. And do we all have our cameras on? I'm going to gallery view. Yeah, we got a lot of cameras on. This is good. This is good. We're recording too. I see that little red dot. This is good. This is going to be even better when we take all these little videos and put them on to Christmas, you know. Okay, do this for me, would you please? Would all of you give me the biggest face you can, like this? Good, and small. Good, and big again. And small. Very nice. Well done. Well done. Nick, you're going to need to see a dentist about that little thing in the back there. Okay, so, and now what I'd like for you to do is to purse your lips. Tightness. And then relax. And then smile. Big smile. Big smile. Good. And now I'd like for you to take your eye focus and move it up. Good. And back up the other way. Good. And down. Good. Excellent. Now, very specifically, not looking into the screen, but looking straight into the camera. Now, as if you can see everybody through the lens of the camera. And then react as if you see something in there. Like you notice that Christian really isn't planning on standing up because he's got, you know. Okay, so now your head. If you would take your head and just tilt it forward and back up and back and straight up, tilt to the left, tilt to the right. Excellent. I'm having you rehearse for the next Star Trek episode, you know. Captain. Okay, good. Roll your head one way. Oh, and the other way. Fantastic. Good deal. I know people are going to look at this video and think, my gosh, that was a really boring speaker. Look, everybody's falling asleep. Pivot your head so you're looking to the right. And now to the left. Good. I'd like you to do that again. I'd like for you to look to the right and take 5 seconds to look back towards the camera. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The idea that we not only can move our heads in different directions, but that we can do it over a duration of time. Not all of our reactions have to have the same exact length of time. Sometimes the fact that we look back lets us know that we're thinking about something else, yes? The speaker is thinking about something else because something came into their mind, so much so, this important thought just dropped in their mind, and it was so important that it actually slowed their auto motor skills. They couldn't move back in their regular speed because they were thinking. I'm thinking. So if we're telling a story about how we discovered this great thing, if we're telling a story about realizing what our child meant to us, if we're telling a story about when we realize something so important about how we treat our customers, that light bulb. We don't all have that little light bulb going off. We don't all have that glaring forehead like I do that goes, ding, I got an idea. No, it's, right? The head move. It can be faster, it can be slower. It can be anything that we want it to be to indicate, to communicate with our audience that this is happening within our skull. Great. And your shoulders, if you would go ahead and hold them up. 1, 2, 3, good. Good, I learned that one from my students. How do you communicate that you don't know? I don't know. Okay, very good. And up one more time. 1, 2, 3, good. And one more time, please. Up. 1, 2, 3, good. When you do it, this, and you let it go, I want you to really enjoy it. I'm going to do it one more time. And this time when you let it go, let it go. And let your shoulders really relax. Ready? Up. 1, 2, 3, and you will find that we hold a lot of tension. We hold a lot of tension in our shoulders. We hold a lot of tension in our neck. And when you release that tension, it will give you the ability to speak just a little bit better. You can resonate so much more. You can create so many more sounds the way you want them to sound, not right up here where it's tense. When it's tense and it's right up here, because this is all tense because of all the things that we have to do today, then we're trying to push out air from our jaw. And if our jaw is trying to push out air, then it doesn't have time to make the sounds that we really wanted to make. Remember that air should be pushed up from the diaphragm. Air should be pushed up from the diaphragm. If the diaphragm is pushing the air, then this is relaxed and has the chance to make the sounds that we want to make. Nice, full vowels. Full vowels. And remember, the vowels, they communicate emotion. The vowels communicate emotion. The consonants communicate thought. So when you're looking at your stories, consider, am I looking at data? Am I looking at rational, logical thought progression? Or am I talking about the emotion that came out? Sometimes we are looking at a story and we're trying so hard to get the pieces of the story right. But maybe it's not about getting the pieces of the story right. Maybe it's not about the date. Maybe it's not about the sequence. Maybe it's about the emotion of what went on, right? So consider, what am I really trying to get my audience to understand about the story that I'm telling? Because sometimes you find yourself telling the story and you go, but that part doesn't matter. Here's what I'm really trying to get to, you know? So what is it that you're really trying to get to? Does it matter that it was really Oreos versus another brand of cookies that I loved? Not really. What matters is that whatever it was that I said to my mother was what she brought home, all because of me. So we have to pick and choose what part of the story we really want our audience to understand, and then how do we convey that? Is it going to be vowels? Is it going to be consonants? Where do I really need to use emphasis? At what part of the story do I really need to use emphasis? At what part of the story can I speed up and move it along so I can get to the main part that I need to get to? What's my length of time? For some of you, it's 1 minute. For some, it's 30 seconds. For others, I have 5 minutes to tell this beautiful story and persuade my audience. Whatever that window of time is, decide where are my points of emphasis and what are the best skills that I have to convey that point of emphasis. It might be vocals, it might be gestures. So let's continue looking at some of our gestures. All gestures, I'm going to move very quickly here, all gestures should somehow come from your main torso, your shoulders, even the energy from your feet. I know we're on Zoom now, but even if we're on Zoom, if you can at all, if it means that much to you, then do what you need to do to stand up. If what you're trying to say is that important, if what you're trying to achieve is that important, then make the concerted effort to situate yourself so that you can stand up. Not all of you have the space that I have, but we've all got a room where we can give ourselves just a little bit more space. Take your computer and elevate it up so that you're at the right height and that you're not looking down at your people that you're trying to persuade, because that's all part of your gesture. And let the energy come forward from your torso, through your body, through your shoulders, and then the gesture. Some of you have heard me say before, avoid this. Avoid this. Why? Because you are not a forklift. Beep, 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 beep. Let me serve you the message. Oh, come on. Every time you get a speaker like that, you're thinking, you could have sent this in a memo. Right? If you can send in the memo, send it in the memo. They don't need you. You have so much more to offer than forklift. Subliminally, we're sending a message with this. We're sending a message that it's not that important to me because I'm only here. I'm only using my elbows. I'm not using my whole body. I'm not reaching into the camera, really trying to get you to understand how important this is to me. And secondly, I have nothing. Isn't that what we're showing when our palms are up? I have nothing. Look, please, I have nothing. I'm not hiding any. I got nothing. So if you're trying to convince people that you are being transparent and honest, then yes, this is good. But if you're trying to convince them that your ideas are worth listening to and that you have something that they need, then this isn't always the best idea because it shows that I have nothing. Instead, we can take our hands and understand there is the space between you and the camera, which we tend to use as gesturing. There is also the space to your sides. If you pivot, you all of a sudden have this space. You can still keep eye contact, even in your rolly chairs. You have this space to the side. So you can demonstrate what you need to demonstrate, not necessarily here where you got big hands, right? Right? People go, you got big hands, sir. But you can demonstrate right here. And you can also demonstrate above and behind you. All of a sudden, we have this depth. Now, all of a sudden, you can leave your past behind, right? You can talk about the future is in front of you. History is in the past. All those great things that we like to say in our stories. Achieve greatness. It's above you. Now, if you stay standing, And I go, your future is above you. You're right. I can't see my future. It's out of camera range. But if you lower at your knees and you bend at your back, the future is above you. Ah, we can still do this here. And you can certainly do it when you're in front of a live audience. Gesturing. Let's continue talking about these things called hands. We've talked about where they go. Let's talk about some other essential things that we need to know about our hands. Please do this with me. When we do this, you'll notice I'm moving my hands symmetrically. The hands, they're moving symmetrically. Good, you may relax. Our hands can also move asymmetrically. Yes, the hands don't both need to move at the same time or in the same way. Oh my gosh, are you serious? The hands can move separately? Yes. They can move in and out of camera range, right? Woo! You're like, Fursey, you spend way too much time entertaining children. So, look, it's a little growth. The hands can move asymmetrically. What this does is it forces the audience to think. Oh, whoa, two things going on. They're not thinking consciously. It's very subconscious. It's very subliminal. They're forced to process, right? We all know how fast the brain thinks. Yes? Speed of light. It's electrical circuits going on all the time. And if they see different things, they're more likely to have to wake up and think and process and fire. And when we force our audience's brain to do that, they interpret that as far more interesting. If it doesn't have to interpret, they're getting bored. So you have to change this picture for them. You have to change this little picture that you're on. Even when you're not in Zoom, you still have a picture frame. You still have a picture frame that you're working within. So by having asymmetrical gestures, by having gestures of different rates, you can still pull in your audience without doing a lot of crazy things, yes? You can simply change the rhythm and the pace with which you gesture. Because our stories have different rhythms. Our stories have different pacings. The objects that we have, how we gesture about them tells us how we feel about them. Oh, I wanted to take this and crush it. It represented my failure. I wanted to take this and grow it because it represented my success. I wanted to take this and write it on the board because it represented who I was to the world. Make sense? Everything that we do physically, everything that we utter vocally, works together to create the image that we want. So what is the image that we want? Every one of us is going to have a different answer for that based on what we want our audience to feel. Again, you're trying to persuade your audience, not inform them. You're not trying to inform them that this happened to you and that happened to your dog, or this happened during your business. This happened when you were a child, that happened with you and your father or your mother. You're not trying to inform them that. You're trying to use this story to persuade them. Persuade them to do what? Persuade them to do what? What do you want your audience to feel? What do you want your audience to think? Are you wanting your audience to trust you? Because if you're trying to get them to spend money, then you're trying to get them to understand that you are trustworthy with that money, that your decision is going to be the right decision. Even if you're trying to give them data. Here is all the data that we have produced in the last year. This is what our research has told us. You want them to believe you. You want them to trust that your data is correct. So how you speak, how you gesture, is going to create that sense of trust. Watch leaders on camera. You know those are rehearsed, right? All their gestures. And they can't use a gesture that some other leader has done, right? They have to create their own little gesture. They have to create their own little gesture so that it becomes their key signature gesture. You can do the same. You can do the same. It may not be the key gesture that you use all the time, but it might be a key gesture that you use for that particular speech. Think about a theme or a main point that you want to convey in your speech. And think about how many times you say that main point or you demonstrate that theme. 2 times, 3 times, right? Introduction, main body, conclusion. Usually at least 3 times. Maybe even 4, maybe even 5. It's up to you. And it depends on the length of your speech or your presentation. But whatever that theme is and whatever that main point is, create a gesture for it. And whatever that gesture is, repeat it when you say it. I think we're on the verge of growth. I think this company is on the verge of growth. I think you and I have growth in our future. Choose whatever it may be. I wouldn't necessarily use this gesture all the time, but inclusion, yes, inclusion. Let's work together. Whatever it be. Trust your family members. Trust the people you're with. Believe in others. Whatever it is that your theme is, create that gesture and repeat it 2, 3, 4 times when you need to. Now your audience not only has what you've said and how you've said it, but they also have a physicality that they take and they interpret and they synthesize together. So their brain is processing all of that. You stand a better chance of making sure that they remember not only your message, but they remember you. Let's face it, they got a lot of things they're worried about. They got a lot of things they're thinking about. After you get done here, you're really thinking about other things. About 50% of you are probably on your phones right now trying to multitask with other things. If I'm going to keep you focused on what I'm saying, I need to keep changing this picture and make sure that you remember me long after you've got to make dinner or lunch or put the kids to sleep or go drive and do other tasks. So I need to create a gesture or a message that you will continue to think about long after we've shut down this Zoom. I wonder what that gesture could be. I'll figure it out later. All right. Let's take a look at some of your stories. Let's take a look at your story and consider how we could approach that story to take it to the next level.
30 minutes in.
Thank you, sir. Moderator or chat monitor, who shall we call upon for a story? Who has given us one?
We just shared the invitation a few seconds in the chat, so we're waiting for people to volunteer.
Excellent.
We have Tammy D.
Tammy D.
So the message I'd like to convey is humor, and that's the end result. So I'll tell my story. I wanted to propose 5 years ago, and it had to be in Belize. I had the whole thing planned out. And it was, if you can imagine it, it was a luxury tree house. It was a private island. It was perfect, bachelorette. And unfortunately, I asked my to-be wife, can we go to Belize? And she said, no. We planned where we're going to travel to every year. So in January, I would say, can we go to Belize? No. It went on year after year. For 5 years, she said no. Then finally, about 5 years in, when the ring has been sitting in my sock drawer for all this time, she says yes to Belize. So we go, and it's beautiful. It's just as everything that I planned and imagined. And once we had a great time and I proposed, her final comment was, "What took you so long?" Technically her, but for marital bliss, I will leave that alone. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Tammy. Nice. Very nice story. Very nice. Tammy, what would you say would be the most important thing about that story? What's the most important thing that you want us to remember?
The end. I want you to laugh at the end when the punchline is that it was her that caused me to delay the proposal for 5 years. So it's the punchline at the end, and that's what you're supposed to laugh at.
Excellent. What took you so long, right?
What took you so long? Exactly.
Absolutely. So let's make sure that we set it aside. Let's make sure that we can really punctuate it in a way that pulls our audience, out of the rhythm of the rest of the story. And so that jolt at the end hits with an impact that you desire. So if you were to create a voice for her, what might that voice sound like? It can be her real voice, or it doesn't have to be. I mean, you know what I mean? You don't have to use her real voice, but what kind of voice do you feel comfortable creating to represent this other person who said, "What took you so long?"
I'm gonna get in trouble, but what took you so long? Like a higher pitch. What took you so long? Something
Good, good. And if there was an emotion that we would like for her, if there's an emotion that we would like for her to have, and it might be exactly the way she said it, or we might change it up a little bit for maximum humor. Because time has passed, right? Time has passed between the time that she said it and now. And so the way she said it at that time may not have been humorous, but because we're telling this story, we have to shift it just a little bit so that this story has the impact that we want it to have. And so how would she say that?
She would probably, what took you so long?
Good.
Right?
And then what was your reaction to it at the time? Right? We have several different ways we can go here. After she says what she says, you can look at the camera, because here's our audience, right? You look at the camera like, like, oh, or is it, oh, or is it, yeah? Or is it simply stunned? What? And you get to do that. You get to do your own reaction. And maybe that's how you reacted then. I don't know. But it's okay that you're giving us a reaction now of how we look back at the time. Like, 5 years of waiting. Because it's a great, great story. Okay. So those are some of the first things that I would discuss with you is, okay, what's her voice and what's her tone? Because that is the punchline, but you also have your punchline of your reaction. Your reaction cues us as to how you want us to feel.
Okay.
Your reaction tells us it's okay to laugh. Your reaction tells us it's okay to be angry. Your reaction tells us now you laugh. Okay. I know that seems strange, but we have to cue our audience. Now you laugh. And that reaction gives it to us. It could be, ah, and you can play with that. You play with that to figure out what's your rhythm. Funny is an interesting thing. Funny is in theater, we say dying is easy. Funny is hard. Dying is easy. Funny is hard. There's a couple other very important things about humor. Nick, could I trouble you to please ask me this question? Ask me, what's the most important thing about comedy?
Fercy, What's the most important thing
Timing.
about comedy?
All right. Nick, would you ask me that question again, please?
Fercy, what's the most important thing about comedy?
I'm on mute. Timing. Just, hey, if the punchline's that important, make sure you're not on mute. It blows it all, right? And so all of that, the timing of how you look at the camera and how you react to her, oh my gosh, you could milk it for a couple more laughs, right? Because after you tell the story and then you go on, you reference it, you reference the same exact expression. You can reference the same exact expression. You could, 2 minutes later in the speech, come right back to her, what she said to you, and your reaction, and get the humor moment again. You've milked the story for 2 more memorable moments. And why not? It's such an important moment in your life. You might as well use it with a little bit more impact. I'd ask for you to consider where in your story you could pick up the pace just a little bit, only because you can then separate it by pacing and pause. If the rest of the story has a certain rhythm, yes, then to get to the point of humor, we have to take an even longer pause. But if we speed up the story just a little bit, then the pause is more dramatic. Then the pause is a little bit more pregnant, you know. And so we can have a lot of fun with that. Consider whether you want to focus on the beauty of the island more than the duration of the repetition of how many times you had to do this, right? How many times did you ask her and then you had to put it back in the drawer? Because I think that aspect of it leads to the punchline as opposed to the beauty of the island. You can still reference the beauty of the island, but you can go a little faster through that part. You don't have to focus on those particular words. You can focus a little bit more on the... So the first time I thought about it, the second time I thought about it, the third time I thought about it, the fourth time, got to put it away in the drawer. Those are the variables that I would consider. Not that any one has a particular answer to it that's going to work for you, but those are the different variables. I hope that helps, Tammy. And thanks for sharing your story. All right. Who else do we have?
The next person waiting to chat with Fursey is from Ireland, Moira O'Brien. Moira O'Brien from Ireland.
Hello, Moira. Welcome to the show. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Absolutely. Do you believe in miracles? I don't. At the age of 17, I lived in Cyprus. Well, I didn't live there. I spent my school holidays there. And of course, being a hot country, I spent all my days on the beach. Now, the beach wasn't a sandy beach. The beach was full of pebbles and stones and rocks. And during the course of 6 or 8 weeks of summer, being young, one would fool around on the beach and my legs would become covered in sores. And these sores just would not heal. They were there all the time. My father had arranged a holiday. We were going to go to the Holy Land. We spent a week in the Holy Land, a beautiful week. And one of the highlights was a trip to the Dead Sea. And on the way to the Dead Sea, we stopped off at the River Jordan. You know the River Jordan in the song, yeah? Of course you do. We got off of the coach. It was very, very hot. And what was the best thing to do but to go down to the river, sit down on the bank and cool one's feet in the beautiful flowing water. 2 days later, all the sores on my legs had gone. I don't believe in miracles. Do you?
Nice. Thank you, Moira. Thank you. Wow. Powerful. Very powerful. Moira, what would you say was, in your estimate, the most powerful line that you say? Muted.
I don't believe in miracles.
At the end.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Would you tell your story? I'm going to ask you to rewind your story just a little bit, and would you take it from crossing the River Jordan? And then you asked us, you know about the River Jordan, the song.
Mm-hmm.
Would you take it from there again, please, and just tell us what that part of the story is?
Okay. So on that day, we were to take a trip to the Dead Sea. And on the way to the Dead Sea, we would cross the River Jordan. You know the River Jordan. You remember the song? And I can't remember the song, which is why I paused and I didn't produce it. But in another case, I would remember. And we stopped for a breather. And because it was a very hot day and we were already quite near to sea level, I went down to the river, and to cool off, I dangled my legs in the flowing water. Beautiful, cooling, flowing water.
Good. Would you tell me that part again, please? Slow it way down to about 50% speed. Like we see your feet in slow motion going into the water.
It was a very hot day. I went down to the river and dangled my feet and my legs into a cool, flowing stream. 2 days later, all those sores had gone.
Good. Now slow that down even more. Pause. You don't have to slow down the rate at which you speak the word in this case, but put the pauses in between each word, because when you noticed that the sores were gone, there was discovery. Yes? Would you take that part again, please, and bring us to that exact moment when you saw and you discovered? Would you do that, please?
2 days later, the sores had gone. Or 2 days later, the sores had gone.
Continue.
Do you believe in miracles? I don't.
Even though we have that incredibly important line at the end, like you said, I think it's everything that leads up to it, into that moment of discovery where we put our focus, because that's where the audience is right there with you. At that moment that your feet go in, because we know where you're going with it, right? Because you did such a beautiful job at the beginning. Do you believe in miracles? And then you talked about your legs. And so we know where we were going. When you talked about going to the Holy Lands, you set us up for it beautifully. So we don't need to wait for the punchline at the end, because we know exactly where you're going. So it's that moment of the feet going in. Oh. And then when you have the clincher at the end, it's that moment when we can all breathe again. Right? It's that moment when all of us can breathe again. We are waiting for a moment to exhale. And that's after you finish telling the story. Do you believe in miracles? Yeah, but it's the story. That's the image you want us to remember. You don't want us to remember as we walk away, do I believe in miracles? You want us to remember
Feet in the
your feet,
water.
your ankles,
Yeah.
the water, the cool water. Of course, I went and put in that music. Music is very important. I know some of you are wondering, Fursey, we can't always play music when we give a speech. I'm not suggesting that you do, although if there's a particular moment when you have to have the whole shooting match set up for you, you know, you're having one of those big groups and you're really trying to motivate them and you're really trying to do a once in a lifetime kind of thing. You're having that Steve Jobs giant auditorium full of people that you're trying to sell millions of dollars of Apple products. Playing the music for an audience is good, but what I'm really trying to suggest is you use music in your rehearsal process. You use music in your writing process. When you're creating your speech and you're trying to figure out what to say and how to say it, have a theme song. Have a song that inspires you. The muse, yes? The artists talk about having a muse, someone who inspires them. Well, you've got a piece of music that inspires that particular speech. And every speech might have a different piece of music. I mean, you might have a piece of music that you use every time you get into thinking mode. I would encourage you to have a piece of music for that particular speech. And when you're driving or you're riding the subway, you're out for your walk and you're thinking about your speech and you've got your headbuds in. And while you're saying your lines, you all of a sudden take the music and integrate it. And all of a sudden you'll find your pacing change, your rhythm change. You'll even start to find your volume increase. And then everybody in the subway says, hey, shh. I don't know. So you can find music that works for you. I'm going to take 1 minute. And what I'd like for you to do in this 1 minute, I know some of you still have stories and we're going to get to that, but I'd like for you to take 1 minute, look around your space, and I want you to find a picture that means something to you or an item that means something to you. You have 60 seconds. Find that one thing that means something to you and figure out why it means something to you. You have 1 minute. Go. If you're all watching me on camera, yes, this is the backstage tour of the theater. Okay. Let's go on to the next story. Who have we got, Christian?
All right. The next person is Jose Pereira. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Jose Pereira, please unmute yourself and share your story.
Okay. He was but a small boy. 20 years of his life, he kept worrying about how much taller he was than all the other boys. Like the ugly duckling, he grew into a tall and beautiful swan. And it took him but 1 second to fall in love with a girl in a wheelchair. That's it.
Excellent. Jose, what would you like for us to feel as your audience? What do you want us to think? What do you want us to do?
Feel the conflict. 20 years of your life changed by 1 minute.
Lovely story. Powerful. Powerful. Let's go through it again. Would you tell the story again? And at the moment of the greatest conflict, pause. Yes? I'd like for you to pick up the pace just a little bit, just a hair. Don't go twice as fast, just a little bit, so that the pause it seems even more pregnant. Yes?
Okay.
All right. Would you mind going one more time, please, Jose? Thank
From
you.
the beginning?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He was but a small boy. 20 years of his life, he kept worrying about how much taller he was than all the other boys. Like the ugly duckling, he grew into a tall and beautiful swan. And it took it but 1 second to fall in love with a girl on a wheelchair.
So where was the point of conflict, Jose?
One second.
That it took him 1 second?
I'm sure pretty much more, but should I include that part in the story to have a bit more of?
I might put the conflict at the fall in love. I might put the conflict at the fall in love. I'd like for you to try it one more time. And I'd like for you to also not emphasize the word he. I'm not doing that for political or personal reasons. But I think that the strength of your story is about the description that follows, as opposed to the he. He was but a small boy. Yeah. And he grew. Minimize just a little bit some of the drama of tall, and then pace us up until fall in love. And let that word fall, because that's his realization. Right? Would you do you feel like I've found that I'm with you? All right. Sorry. Did you lose me?
Just a bit. At least I did.
Okay.
But you're back.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I switched places and all of a sudden the internet got wonky. Let's try it again and not stress he, but stress later on, and then focus on the fall in love. And when you talk about falling in love, that's his realization.
Mm-hmm.
One more time, please.
He was but a small boy. 20 years of his life, he kept worrying about how much taller he was than all the other boys. Like the ugly duckling, he grew into a tall, beautiful swan. And it took him but one second to fall in to and it took it but 1 second to fall in love. It's difficult, this part. And it took him but 1 second to fall in love.
Good. It took him but
Girl.
1 second, right? It took him but 1 second. You can key a word by putting a pause after the word as well. It took him but 1 second to fall in love. Yes. So so you can give us a little bit more emphasis on fall in love and let that slow down. And that contrasted, right? That pacing and that slower rhythm there contrasted with what you do in the earlier part of it, I think will give you the effect that you want.
I need to
Very
practice.
nice. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you.
Nice job. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. If we could ask for somebody who would like to volunteer with their item, with either the picture or the item that you got in that last 60 seconds, would we have a volunteer who would like to do that? Great. Jim?
Yep.
Jim? Okay. Would you tell us about that item?
This item was selected amongst hundreds by using a pendulum, because in an ancient belief, the pendulum has your energy. And so my energy makes the pendulum flow in an oval shape. And I tested each one of the ones on display until this one, matched my energy. And I found this in a small shop in Kyoto, Japan.
Great. Let's take the story and switch the parts around just a little bit. I like the fact that you hit it right off the bat and cut straight to my energy. And then discuss about that small shop in Kyoto, Japan, where I found my energy. Yes. And then the mystery of it. I think sometimes the more we explain on something like that, the less mysterious. Yes, because we've taken away the mystery because we've explained it all. But if we think about the mystery of it and delve into, or not delve into, but explore around the mystery of it, I think we can create a whole lot of wonder and a whole lot of the beauty of what we don't understand. And yet you found it in that small little shop in Kyoto, Japan. Does that make sense? Would you tell us again the story of the item with those slight changes to it? Would you mind doing that again, please, sir?
It was a small, dark alley in the middle of Kyoto, a historic city in Japan, where I went in to find a partner that would match my energy. I took out a pendulum to test the energy of this bowl and closed my eyes, and I could feel how the pendulum was moving as I tested each one. Eventually, I found the one. When I opened my eyes, I was surrounded by amazed people looking on at what was going on.
Whoops. Thank you. Excellent. Give him a round of applause. Thanks, Jim.
60 minutes in.
60 minutes in. Thank you. Fantastic. Sometimes how we tell a story can change the entire meaning of it. And obviously what words we put in and what words we leave out can make a big difference. I think in this case, that sense of mystery and that sense of magic were what was important there. When we are telling a story, and I know a lot of times we have objects, we have a picture, or even a PowerPoint. You have a PowerPoint and you share screen with something on Zoom. We have to figure out how to really interface with those objects and those pictures and those visuals. I've found that sometimes the best thing that I can do in those moments is to let the audience interact with it. Like I might throw a PowerPoint up there. What do you see? You know, and let them breathe it in. Let them take that moment. Let them use that silence, that pause to catch up. And sometimes that pause is what's going to pull them in from what they were doing and what they were thinking, and it gets them refocused. And so just a thought, just a thought. All right. I just wanted to make sure that we took a time to talk about pictures and objects, because I know that a lot of times we have those things. We have PowerPoints we have to deal with. We have data, we have charts. And how do you deal with something that's not necessarily a story that you've derived? But thank you, Jim. I know that I asked a lot of you to try to reformat your entire story without any kind of preparation, but I appreciate it. Another story
Right.
that
If you were calling for the next person, it was actually going to be Jim. But since he already has shared his perspective, the next one who's going to be sharing is Rod Todorovich. Rod Todorovich, can you please come on screen?
Aloha.
Hey, Rod.
My story is basically a simple vision. I had been in Hawaii teaching secondary school for about 5 years, and I got very much into Hobie cat sailing. And I loved being in the water. So I have a friend who had a sailing business on Maui. I called him up. I said, Jim, can you get me on a sailboat to the mainland? And he said, let me see what I can do. And about 5 days later, he had me lined up on a boat. And so for the first time in my life, I went intercontinental on a 39-foot trimaran. And I remember leaving the islands and watching Molokai is the last island that you see, and it's getting further and further away. And later that day, I knew that tomorrow I would wake up and there would be only ocean, 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 everywhere, ocean. And a couple of days later, I had this thought of like, wow, this is in the middle of the night. We are like a little cork out here, you know, at 39 feet, that's not very big. But I said, this cork is just totally insignificant in this huge ocean, except that I decided to do this, to take this risk. And about 3 days later, we got into the North Pacific High, where it's glassy and it's like there's this reflection in the water and the images of the clouds and everything are more beautiful reflected off the water than they are looking straight up. And many days later, it was a 24-day trip. And when I got to land in Oxnard, California, I said to myself, this is a blessing. This is incredible. And I must do this again. And I did 1, 2, 3 times. End of story.
Nice, nice. Rod, you are a gifted storyteller. And boy, what a story it is. I liked how you put the 3 times at the end. So obviously you know how to build a story. I think that's terrific. I appreciated how you talked about the distance as you saw the island disappearing. I think that was very good. It's obviously very difficult to do something like that on Zoom. And I think you tried a couple things that really worked for you. I would encourage you to consider the imagery of the cork and the imagery of at night, because I think those are the parts of the story that are most, if I could use this word, frightening. You know, at night on the water, because I think for some of us understand how land gets smaller and smaller and smaller in the distance, I think. But I think that all of us can understand that in the dark, things are scary and you're not sure. You flashed on it. You flashed on, okay, I thought about this and at night, and then you flashed about the smallness of the cork on the water. And I think that's where we really have the fear. I think that's where you're really trying to get us. Yes, that's where that's the point of introspection and reflection and the magic of that inward view of we're so infinitesimal. This is where I'm really going to get into your story, and I'm really sorry if I intruded too far. There's a quote that tends to use the image of ships because it uses ships in the quote. That I'm going to botch this, but a ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are made for. And I don't know whether that's something you would say at the beginning. I don't know whether that's something you say at the middle or in the end. It might be something that you say right at the top, because I feel like that sets the tone for where you really want to go. Whereas I think about 30 seconds, the first 30 seconds of your speech, I think you talk about living in Hawaii and the ship and the catamaran, or is that what you said? I forgot. But the intercontinental, I think some of those things kind of distract us from where you really want to take us, because it's such an incredible speech about almost existentialism. I don't know. Maybe I'm going too far, Rod. I'm sorry about it, but it seems like that's really the power of the speech, is your personal journey on this physical journey, that imagery of the cork. And, you know, I feel like that's a huge part of your speech. So I apologize if I'm sort of bending it and taking it in a different direction, but I feel like that's the strength of it that really pulls us in. I think that's the part that really makes us wonder, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go be Rod. And I may not sail a ship on the sea and lose sight of land, but I'm going to go do something different. I'm going to let go of those things that I've been holding on to, and I'm going to go take a risk.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into that darkness. I'm going to go out into the big blue sea of whatever my big blue sea is. And I'm going. You know, I'm going to go do the Toastmaster contest. I'm going to go do this or that. I feel like that's really where the power of your speech is. I know that what we're getting into here, so thank you, Rod. If I could transition to another point.
Great.
A lot of times we start in one place with a speech and it takes us in a different direction, because we are beings that feel and think, and we're not sure what it is that we're feeling and thinking, and we come up with words to talk about it. But then we realize, oh, those weren't the exact words I was looking for. I was really looking for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you could take something and interpret it in a completely different way. You may or may not know these songs. I'm going to play one song and then play another. This is one song. Excuse me. Okay, I'm getting from Nick's head bob that the sound works. We're going to go just about 30 seconds. What words would you use to describe this song? Everybody has a couple of words in mind. You don't have to say them. Well, okay, let's say them. What words would you use to describe that piece of music?
I can assist you there, Mr. Gotuaco. I'm having the following words in the chat: anger, adventure, piercing, that's from me, rocking, emotive, 80 miles per hour on an interstate in a convertible. Okay, that's very precise. Pent-up emotion, sexy from the president of online presenters, and funky.
Excellent. And now I'd like to play this second piece. See if you can spell this one. What words would you use to describe that piece?
Right, Fursey, so we have touches the soul, mellow, groovy, laid back, chill, rhythm, movement, creative, jazzy, romantic, thoughtful, soulful, bumps on a train ride, chilling, going to do this my way, easygoing, and croony.
Fantastic.
And the list goes on.
How many of you recognize that as the same song? Elaine? Yeah. Yeah. Nick? Yeah. Right? Yeah, Christian? I mean, that's the same song. It's the same singer. It's the same song. It's not like two different singers did their interpretation of the song. Same song, same writer, same singer, same experienced, just 30 years apart with a reflection. How we can take the same lyrics and interpret it in a completely different way. What we can do with our speeches, what we can do with our stories in our lives, what we could do with a quote. You can take a quote and shape it this way and that way to mean this and that, to heighten certain words. All of that is at our disposal. Well, we have a little bit of time left to take some questions.
And 15 minutes left.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I am compiling the questions. I've got a few already. Would you like me to set them to you?
Yes, or you can voice it out loud.
Okay, I will voice it out loud. In the order of the questions, Andrew Byrne would like to understand your setup, namely how many cameras you had initially when you were in the theater, and did you have someone working with you, assisting you? In summary, what has been your setup so far from the start until now?
I just had one camera. It's my laptop. I have a MacBook Air, and I was on stage in a theater, and a black curtain behind me and two lights. That was it. Then I had to move into my office because the kids are going out there and they're going to prepare some stuff for rehearsal today. So that's what you see now. But otherwise, it's just the one camera. That's it. No, not even a microphone. That's why you could hear my voice change. Thank you.
Right. You're welcome. Val Swansborough wants to know, which gesture would you be using to denote embarrassment? Which gesture would you be using to denote embarrassment?
I think the covering of the mouth, or like, oh no, the embarrassment, sorry, or the embarrassment, embarrassment, anguish. I think embarrassment can go in several different ways. The polite embarrassment or the embarrassment, There's also the embarrassment where you just let out a real good cuss word, you know, like those ones that you said earlier, Christian, in the ready room.
Yeah, I sort of forgotten about them. All right, thank you for sharing. The next question is from Olivier. What do you mean by punchline? When you use the words punchline, what do you mean by those words?
The punchline is the line in a joke. In a joke, the punchline is the one that triggers the audience. It's the one line that triggers the audience. And usually stories or jokes have a line that hits the audience, like on this line, that's the one that releases the meaning of the line. And most stories and most jokes have that. Now, sometimes a joke doesn't have a punchline, like one of my favorite jokes. Elaine, we're going to do a knock knock joke, Elaine. Would you go ahead and start that, please?
Knock, knock.
Who's there? See,
Joke.
that particular joke, which happens to be my favorite, doesn't necessarily have a punchline that you get at first. You have to think about it and go, oh, okay, I get it now. But usually jokes and stories have some punchline that once I say this word, everybody gets it. Next question.
All right, so this one is a bit long. Please bear with me. It's from Chantal Claricia. It's about dialogue on Zoom. So in a story, if we make people talk and we look right for one person, like I'm doing right now, and then we look left for the other person, in the case of dialogue, looking right, looking left, the audience may not be able to hear us properly. What is the best way to practice and deliver dialogue on Zoom so that the audience can still hear us and connect with us?
That's an excellent question. You've got to make sure to increase your volume. You've got to make sure. Every time when I was on stage and I was backing up, I made sure to increase my volume so that my microphone could pick me up. And the same thing, if you turn around, if you turn to the side, you've got to make sure that you can bring up your volume just a little bit. And if you're on Zoom, you can get on your own meeting on Zoom and rehearse that. Rehearse saying A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then replay it and see, okay, where does my voice kick in or lower or get too loud? And if you get this close, remember, if you're this close, you don't have to speak at the same volume that you were here, right? Because if you're at this volume way back here and you get this close and you're speaking, oh my gosh, you're having like that moment with your mother-in-law. You're just like, back up, too close. So I know.
All right.
I insulted half of you who are mother.
Yeah, I love my mother-in-law, by the way. Here's the next question. It's from one of the participants who worked with you a bit earlier, Jim. The question is, you used a phrase, flip or flop. What would be the gesture for the key phrase, flip or flop?
Flip or flop? Well, when you flip-flop, when people use flip-flop to say that they're switching ideas, I flip-flopped on that. That's the gesture I would use. If it's to flip, like I did a flip, my brain was doing somersaults and I flipped. That's the gesture I would use. Flop usually is if taken by itself, it's failure. Oh, I flopped. Right? I flopped. There you go, Carolyn. I flopped. That joke earlier, flopped. Mother-in-law joke, flopped.
All right. Okay, here's the next one. It's from Ami Kotesha. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the name right. For an emotional speech, how important is it to appeal to a sense of vulnerability in the audience? For an emotional speech, how important is it to appeal to a sense of vulnerability in the audience?
Vulnerability, absolutely. Vulnerability. I think we always need to show vulnerability. I think always. I think that's part of what makes us human. And vulnerability doesn't mean you have to cry. That particular story, I went for it. Would I suggest crying at every meeting? No. But I felt like for this meeting, and some of you have already seen me before, so I thought I could take it to the next level. Since this was all about storytelling and authenticity, I thought I could take it to the next level. From the reaction that I got at our pre-meeting a couple of days ago, I thought, okay, this is working, so I can go there with it. But vulnerability can also be laughter. Because when we laugh, we're vulnerable. You know, we're risking. Somebody could make fun of my laugh. And let's face it, our laughs are personal to us. Our laughs are personal. And sometimes they don't quite sound right the way everybody thinks a laugh should sound. And then all of a sudden people make fun of our laugh. So we're vulnerable when we laugh. When we're vulnerable, I think we're human. I think when we're human, people see, okay, I can trust this person. It's authentic. It's very hard to fake a laugh. The more you do presentations, the more you can fake it.
All right.
So you get
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I got it. I hope everyone got it. I think they did. Here's the next question. How would you, what are your recommendations when using music in a speech and making sure the decibel level is in a pleasant range? Use of music and decibel level is in a pleasant range. This is from Rod Todorovich.
I think what you want to do is play the music in advance. When I was with Christian in the back room, I asked him if he could hear a certain piece of music because I knew that it started off very softly. And you got to understand that some music increases as you go, right? Some music starts off really soft and then gets louder, and you have to understand that. And that could really work for you because you start speaking here, and then you know that as you get to the end of your story, it starts to really punch. And so you have to consider that. You also have some pieces of music that start off loud and go soft, or others like a march that's always loud all the way throughout. But you got to ask yourself, how loud can I go and how good is my equipment? You know, so as the music starts to have a crescendo, you've got to make sure that you can come over that music like I am now and realize this is too much, right? You're like, I can't hear him and he's really too close to the camera. There's the music level. It'll allow in that music, you'll start to crescendo, but then it drops. Oops, sorry.
Thank you, Fursey. Here's the next question. Is it possible to add humor to a serious speech? Is it possible to add humor to a serious speech?
I think you have to have humor to a serious speech. You got to give us a moment to laugh and release the tension. That was one of the, I felt like my speech for the international, whatever it is, I felt like that was a pretty dramatic speech, but a lot of things that people pointed out about it were the points of humor. And I wanted about at least 3 to 4 points of humor, and definitely one at the end.
Thank you. We still have questions coming in, and 5 minutes, a bit more than 5 minutes left for this workshop. Here's the next one.
We just do one more question.
Actually, I'd like to set you 2 more. The second one is interesting. Next one. When trying to persuade bosses or customers to buy our ideas at work, we are frequently using slides and using over Google Meet or Zoom, and we are trying to use storytelling with data techniques. So slides in Google Meet or Zoom and using storytelling for data techniques. If using the audio quality, does that make a difference when we deliver such presentations? That's one part of the question. Using a headset, is that usually better than a built-in microphone in the laptop? Because it looks odd or a bit unnatural when movement is restricted. And the last part, what importance should we give to audio quality? And what would be your tips and techniques to remember for better audio? These questions wrapped into one is from Bhushan Karle.
I think audio is a matter of personal preference, and you're never going to know what their personal preference is unless you have a history. But I think the key to the question is really at the very beginning when you said, well, usually you have to use slides and PowerPoint. Why? I think your number one goal when you're selling or convincing or persuading is that connection. Anything that disturbs that connection is an issue. So if the microphone, either the sound of it or the looking of it is a problem, I'd lose it. If the PowerPoint up on the screen gets in the way of your connection, I'd lose it. Your connection is right here. Your connection to that person is what's going to sell. It's all about connection. It's all about relationship. So I would try to minimize anything that gets between you and the other person. That's probably why I've decided to go without a microphone. I think people have said, you ought to try a microphone. I go, well, yeah, but there's something about it that didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. So what works for you? What allows you to reach your person that you need to? Because in a big space, sometimes projecting doesn't work for me. So I'll use a microphone and I'll talk right into it. And I can whisper. I can whisper into my microphone and it'll broadcast 200, 300 feet. So what works for you in creating, establishing, and building that relationship?
Thank you, Fursey. And sorry for the convoluted question. That was me trying to complicate things. Now, the last one, before I hand over back to our moderator, is from Ruxana Khan and also from me. Does Fursey do one-to-one coaching for speakers? And if so, how can we reach him to work for him? So let us know if you do that.
I guess I work one-on-one. I have a couple of groups that I work with where we're online and we do like table topics, and I'll give people feedback on table topics, and it's almost social more than anything, but I know people are working on their skills. Just contact me by my email, and that's really the best way to get hold of me, I guess. I'll go ahead and punch that in. But I like meeting with people. I like chatting with people. And I like helping people move forward in whatever way that they need to move forward.
Thank you, sir. Madam Moderator, over to you.
I want to bring myself up so I can see. What a time this has been. I don't know about attendees participating, but for me, this was so moving at different points. I was feeling the connection with so many people. I was tearing up. I want to thank Fercy for bringing his authenticity and his presence in the moment again and again and again, getting us back to being in the moment. And my takeaway was be willing to be flexible. Let something emerge in the moment that's truly, truly authentic. I think there were 5 people that Fursey got to do one-on-one work with. We do have lots of questions which were taken. I want to let everybody know that the recording for this workshop will be at op.toastmost.org. That is the online presenter's website. And there is a tab there that says videos. Underneath that, there's an individual tab for meetings, workshops, and the like. So you'll be able to find it there. And I do imagine that we will send a link out to all of the registrants with the replay as well. Thank you, Fursey. Do you have any last words for your experience being with us? And once again, I'm most grateful for your generosity of time and your golden presence.
I appreciate the opportunity. thank you to all. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for sharing your stories, and thank you for being amenable to changing your stories and adapting as we go in this experiment. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Christian. Appreciate it. Thanks for letting me insult you, Nick.
And at this point, I would like to turn things back over to President of Online Presenters, Nick Lacani. Nick, unmute. Of course.
And there's a punchline gone. Thank you very much, Fercy. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, everybody who helped in the scenes. Thank you for all the audience who came. Engaging, different. I think you'll agree it was. We'd love to see you. Keep in touch with us. Come to the meetings. Get in touch with online presenters, and also have a look at the replays of other workshops that we've done and the ones we're going to do in the future. I look forward to seeing you in the very soon. We're going to stop the recording now, and we're going to have a little after party.